Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perth East Council meeting tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection, and when you're doing that, please remember Jerry Smith and his family. Thank you. We need a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Hugh, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Okay, if you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting goes along. We do not have any delegations. Before we get into reports, just tonight we're going to relax the rules a little bit for this meeting, and we're not going to have motions all the way through. We're going to take consensus, and then when we get to the end, we'll do a motion with all the things that the actions that we want to take. So first on our agenda is the 2024 Council Budget Visioning. There is a report there. Mike, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. This is the standard report. We've tried to capture the comments received from members of council and put them in a format that hopefully helps as it relates to the conversation. My suggestion would be that through the mayor, we go through each of the questions and open the floor up for additional comments and conversation from council, and hopefully that leads to some clear consensus or majority of council for some direction for staff as it relates to action items. So back to you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll flip to page 5. And that's what's up on our screen, and we'll just go through each section one by one, and if there's something that you feel strongly about, that you've made comments, that you wish to have included, then we will see if there's consensus, and then we'll move on from there. So the first one is about the, what do you see as the objective for the overall budget increase? There's different answers, comments. Does anybody want to say what a figure that they want? Andrew?
Yeah, I think the 3 to 5 things are changing. The cost of living is going down, and they're talking about another rate increase possibly. So that may, we're right now we're looking at 2023, right? Is where we are now, but 2024 may be totally different, maybe worse. But so I think if we can squeeze it down a little bit, might be a good thing to try, especially, the cost of home ownership and businesses is going up. So I put that extra in there just about the, it is inflationary and it is compounding year to year. So I just wanted to have that say.
Okay, Bob?
Okay, so I realize for forever, municipalities have taken the CPI and applied that to budgets, and we've lived with that for many years at 1.5%, 2%. I guess after COVID, we've seen some significant increases. And I think when you look at the insurance as an example of 10% this year and 15 and 16 previous years, 5% isn't going to cut it, right? Last meeting, I believe it was the bridge was $80,000 over budget. I'm sure anyone that has their own business is realizing these expenditures are more than just inflation. I think we're setting ourselves up for problems when we're suggesting that, the breads, the butters that we're buying as a homeowner are going to be comparable to the municipal budgets. I don't think so. So I know that's how we do it here. I'm just concerned that we're going to continue to say, let's do 5% or wherever CPI is. And down the road, we're going to be in some pretty significant difficulty because we're not keeping up. And you can always pass the buck. I guess that's what most municipalities do. But I think what you're really asking is for staff to find things to cut, even though they're not told to do that, right? So if you want to just stick with, whatever, 3%, 5%, just be aware that it's really not truly enough as whatever it is, gas, hydro, et cetera, is increasing more, and all the things that you're going to do, roofs on multiple, structures that we own, bridges, paving, any construction projects are going to be far more than, the 3 to 5%. So that's kind of an explanation of why I think that municipalities are always running into problems. And the Region of Waterloo was recently having discussion about something around 10%. Same problems that everybody's running into. Costs are more than they're expecting. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So do you want to, like, staff has always been very good at keeping the budget down, and we really appreciate that. So do we just make a broad statement that we're hoping not much more than, I know, cost of living, but we realize that there are going to be other expenses as well. So we just ask that staff keep it at a minimum. Andrew?
So I did put in my comment because I don't really know, and I thought it might be a good thing to ask in public, just a general discussion on what typically does a municipality do when you have inflationary pressures, like energy costs and that. Would you just turn it down a couple degrees, or is there more to it? Like, I'm sure there is. I'm just curious if we can just touch on that briefly.
Yeah, through you, Mary. I think Councillor McMillan's comments ring true. I think we struggle with CPI piece because a lot of our construction projects don't align with CPI. They're larger than that. And as it relates to inflationary pressures, I think our pressures are different from a municipal standpoint because we rely so much on our infrastructure pieces that typically don't align with CPI. We do, from an operating standpoint, Councillor McAlpine, try to keep track, a very close track, to make sure we're not increasing, turning the dial, is a good example, but that we're not, using more fuel, we're not increasing heat costs, but to make a real impact on those things, we're talking about service changes. We're talking about, reducing the length of time that the ice is in at the arena, as example. We're talking about reducing the length of the pool season, as an example. We're talking about reducing the amount of gravel we put on our roads. Those are the things that would have a significant impact on the budget. But to council's direction to this point has been that we're not comfortable reducing services in order to offset the inflationary impacts. It's a really difficult balance that I think staff has over the years done a good process. And I think we use CPI as a starting point, but recognize that there are other pressures that we'll bring to council as part of the budget process, whether it's increases or even ideas around how we can decrease without maybe having a significant impact on service levels. But CPI is kind of an easy target because it's a known number, and it's a good place to start from a budget standpoint for us, I think.
Thank you.
Okay. Amanda?
Yeah, just on that point, I think in my short time on council, we've never really directed staff to bring us options of areas that we could potentially reduce services. So for me, I would be interested in seeing options because it sounds like we are going to get to a point where that might have to be considered down the road, and it might be better for us to look at those options at this stage.
Okay. So what would the consensus be? That we have staff, as Amanda said, had staff bring some options when they're doing the budget of where we can save money and try to keep the figure as low as they possibly can. And then I guess during the budget process, that's when we can decide what we want to use and don't use. Is that good? I'm not sure how you put that in motion, but.
That's kind of suggesting that we're looking to lower our service levels. So that's
Kind of, yeah.
Which I don't think is the consensus generally.
No.
We want to continue the same service levels. I mean, in my opinion, we start at CPI and we go from there, right? I don't know that it's attainable to get a budget increase lower than that, but what we're suggesting here would be that we'd be reducing service levels if we're asking staff to come with ideas about doing that. And that's not something that I think we, at this point, can want to entertain, but.
You're correct. It's pretty hard to figure out right now, but, so maybe we would just say that we want to have staff look at CPI and bring back what the best budget they can, and then during budget process, I guess that's when we decide what we're going to do, if we're going to make changes, or we have to see what our growth is as well. Like right now, we have no figures, right? It's pretty tough to pick a number.
Amanda's hands.
Bob? Oh, Amanda?
Yeah, I just want to circle back and clarify my comments. I think to Jeremy's point, it's very, like, it coming up with options alludes to the fact that we're looking at reducing services. What I'm more so getting at is we've never seen options, just for a general awareness of what we could do. My fear is that we get to a point where it gets so out of control that we'll have to cut services partway through or look at that. And so it'd be good just to know what options are out there if you know, sort of worst case scenario. So that was more so what I was getting at, because I am curious about like some of the examples that Mike was listing off. That to me, like, obviously it is considered reducing services. Like, it's not necessarily cutting them. It's just looking at innovative ways to cut costs. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion that, yeah, I think obviously the intent is to kind of keep services look at innovative options as to ways that we could, save costs. So that was just more what I was getting at.
Okay, Bob?
I guess in general, when we've finished the budget, that's when we usually have all the numbers together and we'll say, here's the average $300,000 assessment in Perth East, and the average, household, residential household, is gonna pay $11 more, or something to that effect. And so we've went through all this budget saying, oh, I've heard from people they can't afford their taxes, and then we get to the $11. And I'm like, we did all this work and it's $11. Like, stop going to the beer store once a week or stop buying smokes and you'll be just fine. So I would rather deal with the budget as it is, and, whose ever department is, if they have to find ways to save money, they're gonna, not replace the radios in Bill's budget until the next year, or he's gonna shuffle some things around to make things work. That's how it's always happened, right? That's not new for staff. If they have challenges outside of that, they come to us and say, look, here's what we're dealing with, and I just can't make this work, right? So I think in general, what we have tonight is just fine. We're laying the groundwork for staff. Maybe at some point they'll come and say, geez, everything we're doing is not coming in anywhere close to being near CPI, and we have some challenges. So, but my point is that I don't want to make some drastic decisions tonight or give staff a make work project when at the end of the day, next, February, we might be saying, it's a fairly nominal increase as per usual. Now, having said that, someday the province may go back to assessing properties, and people are going to have a fairly significant jump, as they should, because their properties have probably, doubled since, 2016? So anyway, I would just, and that's just my opinion, but, kind of go through it in general, allow staff the opportunities in the next few months to say, yes, things can be in line with normal, or all of a sudden, I'm not going to be able to hit my targets here.
Okay, everybody good with that?
So it's CPI.
Yep, CPI, and they'll do their best to keep the expenses down, or where they can find savings. Wes is just full of ideas, I can see that. Okay, the second one is understanding the services under control of the township. What do you consider the most pressing issue facing the township at this time? We have some different answers. Anybody want make comments on what they want? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. It's the whole growth thing seems to be being not forced. That's the wrong word. Strongly encouraged. I know we need a little bit of growth for sure. Like, for example, Shakespeare's growing about 90 houses through infilling. You know, the cost has been absorbed by basically the homeowner as being the developer, but that should carry on to larger projects. So the most pressing issue, and it comes from CAO's Gibbons quite right comments about the developer needs to pay that. And my additional question on that is, in the future, and we have to increase our service level internally, whether it's staff or trucks or a different type of machinery or recreation, how is that collected other than user fees in the future? Because that's a big deal, right? Like those costs are a major part of our budget. You know, road usage, pavement usage, all these things are after we assume the subdivisions and whatever may or may not come. So yeah, if there's not is there a clear plan for, or does anybody have a plan where we can recover those costs long term, or?
Mike?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, Councilor McAlpine, I think it's a question and a challenge that every municipality is addressing. The system that is set up for us by the province, who we are products of, is that development charges are here to help with those one-time capital costs at the beginning of the development, and that the assumption that the province has made is that the assessment that comes from that growth pays for the future operating costs. Whether or not, and I think this goes back to Councillor McMillan's earlier comments, the additional assessment, that's the theory. You get new assessment on board after the initial capital outlays are made through DCs, and that assessment and the taxes that are collected from that assessment pays for the new operating costs for the water main that was extended, the fire truck that had to be purchased for the development charges. The challenge around that is we do not make the assessment determination. MPAC makes the assessment determination. We get the numbers and we quickly try to assess what the impact is on the budget, how much that growth is dealing with the new costs that we've assumed. It's not a perfect model, in my opinion. It's never been a perfect model, but it is the model that we're left with to handle. DC's, the Development Charges Act, is very clear that it is not in place to cover operating costs. It's not in place to cover future replacement costs. The assumption is that the new assessment that comes from growth is in place to allow municipalities to handle the operating and the replacements. So that's the answer, or the system that exists right now.
Okay, anyone else? Jerry talked about the capacity of the lagoon and the water systems, and maybe Wes or Jake can comment on that, how much capacity we have for a while, or where that's at.
Yes, certainly something that's changing quickly with the proposed developments, but something we're keeping a pretty keen eye on, and obviously something that's going to be more important going forward to try and project where things are going to go in terms of growth. We do have capacity left, but like I say, that's with some of the proposed developments, that's quickly going away. So we need to start thinking further ahead than maybe we used to. But that's what I have to say on that.
And also next year, we will be talking about doing the master plan. So that will, that brings everything kind of into perspective as to what's left in the whole system. So it'll give council a bit of a chance to kind of look forward for the next 10 years or that type of thing if we're using some growth numbers and that thing.
Waiting until the county gets done with their official plan, then.
I can speak to that.
Mike?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We'd like to use the official plan, the finalized official plan, and the urban settlement areas that come out of that plan to help steer the master planning. We don't want to service growth that isn't going to happen, and we don't want to spend dollars giving consideration to that if that's not the direction that the official plan supports. So we'd like to know what those urban settlement boundaries are, and then focus the master plan on servicing those areas, not going beyond, not guessing, not assuming, because when you do that with engineers, it's costing us money every time. So that would be the hope, Deputy Mayor, is to do it right after the official plan has been finalized.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Ronda. Is there any other way that we can collect fees for especially these long-term building and planning? Are they supposed to be run at break even? Is there anything holding us back from building a reserve off those fees, especially for large developments?
Through you, Mayor, it's both the building and planning are regulated. Yeah, so basically they're break even. So there is no opportunity to increase building permit fees, as an example, to try and offset other operating costs. The fees themselves are to address the needs of the building department only, and planning is established in the same manner. Some municipalities are looking at things like, the short answer is increasing user fees on other services. Historically, recreation has been subsidized by the tax levy, so some places are looking at increasing those fees because, they're not. Recreation isn't necessarily utilized by everybody in the community, so they increase fees there. Other places are introducing things like stormwater levies. Those typically stormwater has been paid for over the years from the tax levy. Municipalities are now trying to find ways to direct those fees to the people that are directly benefiting from stormwater. So those are some of the ideas that exist. Neither of them are perfect in my mind, but they are opportunities to increase revenues to try to redirect them from the tax levy.
Okay, is there anything that anyone wants to come out of this one, or will we move on? Okay, we'll move on. Number 3, what suggestions or comments do you have for the budget process? I think maybe, Paula, do you have something else in mind, like starting it sooner? Do you want to make a comment on this or not?
Thank you, Mayor Agats. I personally would like to see the budget passed earlier. We're passing in March-ish right now. I would like that essentially bumped up to January. Not all at once. We'll take baby steps. Any closer is better. Just from a finance standpoint, it is hard to juggle budget and year end at the same time, just resource-wise for staffing. And it is better to have your budget in place prior to getting into the year pretty far, because you could get into the year. I know some places it's May, June before they pass their budget. Well, half of your budget's spent, and you could have your budget blown out of the water before you even pass it. So essentially, I'd like it passed in January, ideally. And I know in the new term year of new council, it may be delayed a bit, just depending on the turnover in council and stuff. But that would be my idea.
So when would you like to start then? October, November? Like you can have figures ready? I'm sure if she's figures ready. What does everyone think? Are you ready to do it then?
Like, could we sit down in the daytime sometime in January and rip it out during the day? Right? We spend 3 hours on operating and 3 hours on capital in 2 separate nights, usually a month apart. I don't know, can you do it all at once? And I'm not a proponent of daytime meetings, but if that's what it takes to get it done in January, it's a long day, but that's.
What do you prefer, Paula? You tell me, like
A full day of budgeting is, I think, hard for non-finance people. I think after you've listened to me talk for a couple hours, you kind of glaze over and go to sleep, maybe. So previously, I had presented capital budget first, and that would have been in November. And then operating was December, beginning of January, and then it was passed the following meeting.
So does anyone have any objection to starting in November?
Sounds like from all of our comments here, everybody wants to get it done quick.
So, yeah, I don't see a problem. I think you have the tougher task than we do to get it all ready for then, but I would think that council, we could have it in November and December, if that's consensus. Okay, everybody's nodding their head. And then what about the fees and charges bylaw? You'd like it sooner too then?
Yes, through you, Mayor, I guess that would be pretty much the start of the budget, so probably the meeting before.
Like October?
Yeah, I'd say the end of October, beginning of November, if you go second meeting in November for your capital, yeah, something like that.
Okay, anyone have any objections to that? Nope, well, you go for it. Okay, all good with that? All right, then we'll go to number 4. What new projects would you like to see implemented or investigated? Anybody want to? Andrew, you have some? I have one that you have, so go ahead.
Yeah, I got the biggest list. Sorry about that. It's just kind of collecting. Basically, it's safety and one economic development opportunity. So on line 33, I've been working with a number of people on the road there. In my opinion, that was a great repaving of that gravel portion. It's probably the best road in Perth County. It's well done, but we knew it was going to draw a little more traffic. There was a lot of traffic problems on that road before. I actually tried to catch up with a few people who were driving in excess on the gravel portion, going through every stoplight, including the one at 107. So yeah, you can't fix bad drivers, but I know we talked about it, and there's an opportunity to see if we can improve it a little bit. I've been getting emails. I didn't circulate them to council, and I didn't have enough time to, everybody's on holidays, to ask if they wanted them on the agenda so you guys could all see them. I'm not sure whether that's okay to circulate them, but I'll get permission from the writer. For example, one person got rear-ended pulling into their driveway. Police reports filed, people passing on hills, almost head-on. So yeah, bad drivers, hopefully not from around here. I'm just wondering if we could, do a little, we did it on line 29, a little focused kind of analysis on what's going on there, and just report back, and we'll see whether there's a will or a need to do anything. I know we do speed reports once a term. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but we did a little more focus. I think it was vehicle types and that on 29, and maybe we can improve the situation for the people there. I think we did a great job on line 29. I travel it, and it did help a lot. So I think we should do something with 33. There's other, in the counties surrounding, there's other roads that, for example, and this may not happen, that the speed limits have been dropped. There's been other enhancements to try and promote safety. Even here, at the county roads and the corners have had some really good improvements. So let's keep doing it. So that's a safety issue. Same one as Mayor Eggett's Sebastopol pedestrian sidewalk. Before, when we were looking at putting a community safety zone in there 2 terms ago, I stood there with my iPad and kind of scoped out the traffic, and it does need a sidewalk, in my opinion. Anybody wants to go down there, please go down and sit on the side of the road, maybe. There's the one that sticks in my mind was a young girl and her younger brother for some reason, they had a wheelbarrow and they were heading downtown. You know, they were on the road and there was a lot of traffic. I kind of chuckled. I wanted to tell them, you know, go on the grass or something. So there's been significant infilling there. There is a lot of traffic. There's some large farm machinery use that area. I believe one resident, as I recall, on the south side volunteered to have his lawn disturbed for it, but that's the side the mailbox is on. But I think it's worth a look for safety aspect. My number 3 is some type of hard surface. It doesn't have to be full pave. I know there's various means of doing it. The last 2 streets basically in Shakespeare along the railway, I've received communications from people about that, people driving through there and stones flying up, washouts, you know, various issues that, you know, I'm not looking for a highway level thing, but I'm hoping there's some minor hard surfacing treatment that could be done to those 2 as described in point number 3. Number 4, which has been asked for, and I believe staff has worked on last term in one of our visioning sessions, is to put a public washroom downtown Shakespeare. We know now that we have through the EA, we have more land down by the new shop there across from Johnny's Antiques that could support that. The business owners are constantly asking for some type of washroom facility there, and it would support tourism, I think, greatly. The numbers are starting to pick up with the traffic. People are getting back out and starting to shop again. So you got, you know, some really good places there, and we get a business association started, we'll be laughing, but this is something that I think, and has been asked for, and I believe we have worked on, is to put some type of time lock, permanent public washroom down there. I don't think the porta potties would stay vertical for very long, so that might be a waste, but that'd be a good economic development item. So with the traffic in the southern end, and point number 5, as described there, they cut the lights, and we put the speed signs there. People are contacting the OPP. I've helped a few people who weren't comfortable with doing that, giving their information to the OPP to be contacted, so everybody's working on it. A number of people said that they're just not stopping at the stop signs. The police have been there. I'm wondering if they don't see it. So I don't know if there's any way we can just minorly enhance the stop signs at those 2 locations, maybe a blinky light or just a bit bigger. I know it seems ridiculous, but you know, if there's a lot of kids on bicycles in those areas, small children and that, and you know, families walking their dogs. So if we can just try and improve the situation, that would be wonderful if council so desires. And if, you know, we can fund some of this stuff through, hopefully the government, I know there's an election coming up, but maybe we can get some funding or wiggle it into some budget. I don't think there's anything on here that's too earth shattering and expensive, but that's how I would fund it.
Okay, anyone else? Hugh?
Just a question, Wes. Did we ever look into putting those LEDs around the stop sign? I know somebody was up in Huron County or someplace and they had seen them. They said they were hugely effective.
The county has put a flashing light at 112 before they put the 4-way stop in there. And that was just a trial to see whether it was effective or not. And I believe it actually did help. I do need to check to make sure that it's actually, the stop sign is actually recognized by the government as being legal. I don't think it is, but I need to check into that. But that would be one of the options.
Oh, okay, no, that would be great. Just this person said it was, he'd never seen one before, and said it really, really brought your attention that it was a stop sign. So for those stop signs there, maybe if that's possible, something like that might be a cheap and easy solution. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Just to elaborate a bit on Andrews, I've had a phone call and an email about Sebastopol pedestrian sidewalk. So if that's something that we could investigate, So what do you want to do with this? Do you want to ask staff to investigate the items that Andrew has listed? I don't know if they can all be done this year, but they could be done, put on the, I'm not sure where we're at with the budget, how far out we have things already. Like we know what certain roads are going to be done certain years, right? So I'm not sure if any of this can be added, but it certainly can be looked at. Andrew?
I kind of thought there might be an opportunity when they'll have the machinery there. I think we talked about doing Thompson Street to the school. Is it Thompson Street on the little end there? If they're in the area. And again, I don't think we're looking for anything, highway quality, just something to make it a little more of a hard escape. I think there's products available. So that might be an opportunity to be in the area. That's one of the biggest costs, I guess, just getting the equipment there.
Wes?
I'm not going to be here, but Road 103 is on the budget for next year to do some cold in place through wrap and put fiber mat on top of it. So it could be something that might be something we could look at to incorporate that into Railway Street as well. But that would just be my thoughts only.
Okay, so Jeremy?
Are we done talking about roads? I'm going to bring up the washroom.
Yep, go ahead.
The washroom itself and the business association and a lot of communities, Shakespeare and Milverton size, are getting into having BIAs. Mitchell has a BIA, Clinton has a BIA. I'm not sure about Seaforth, but a lot of communities that size have BIAs. We've stayed away from getting a BIA or getting too deep into a BIA in Milverton. I'm a part of another group, but I mean, that's a way to fund or to start funding a project like that would be through the establishment of BIAs as well. And it wouldn't come out of the tax levy. It would come out of the businesses in the cores of these communities. In Milverton, we're going to be in a situation where the money's depleted in the $10,000 a year, $9,000 a year we're getting for beautification is going to be depleted soon. And so we'll be looking for a way to fund that as well. So just a thought about how projects like that in these downtown cores may have to be funded in the future.
Okay, so what do you want to do within this? Is there anything you want staff to look at, investigate, Andrew?
Well, I request that we put these on the list, whether it's this year or hopefully next year at the latest for some of these items. I wouldn't have put them on if I didn't think they need to be done. So we can just get them somehow moving forward and looking for funding opportunities or business improvement areas, just get it on the staff work plan might be a first step, please.
Wes?
So just a question on the pedestrian sidewalk. If that was to go ahead, would council want that to be plowed in the wintertime and stuff as well? Because if that is the case, that's a service level change. So just something to bear in mind. It'd be added cost as well.
That's the one at Sebastopol we're referring to?
Yes.
Do you do the sidewalk then, like going into Tavistock?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you're already there doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to do with this one? Do you want anything added in the motion? Well, what we're going to have at the end. So do you want direction? Do you want staff to review any of these, look into them? Or what do you want to do?
I would like them all looked at, please.
Okay. So we'll add 1 to 5.
And Jeremy's.
Pardon?
And Jeremy's.
And Jeremy's as well?
I don't have a strong opinion on that. I just said a few people talked about making our community a little more cycle friendly on the roads rather than just the trails that we currently have. You get off of some of our trails and you're directly on, usually you would jump onto a county road in many cases. So it would be like a county thing. You get to Bruner and you want to go anywhere from Bruner from our trail, you're cycling on the road. I don't know what the province or what the MTO would say about cycling on the side of the road. You know, when you're riding a motorcycle, you're supposed to be over to the left. Like, should you, when you're cycling, do they want you on the edge of the road, or do they want you on the shoulder? I'm not sure what the rules are around that. So the suggestion was made that we've started to make some of our communities a little more cycle friendly. We could continue to do that by, when we're paving these roads, expanding the shoulder out a couple feet in cases where we actually can. Not all of our roads can sustain that, but I don't know what the cost would be. You know, if it increase the cost of the road by 5%, 10%, something to think about.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Rhonda, I was at a conference once, real quick. I don't know if maybe Bob was at that one too, if he saw, or Councillor McMillan was there. It was a guy, he was from Amsterdam, and they have like 60,000 people every day of the year, including winter, run bikes. And first thing he said, I don't own a pair of spandex. The second thing he said, you'd try not to mix the traffic with cars. They always try and separate it, and that's at lower speeds like in town. So I don't know if there's any unused. I get nervous seeing a lot of bicycles on the road because they don't always follow the rule, single file, and you get planting season or harvest season, and you got that added thing in there. I don't know. It just from a safety point of view, I think biking's great, but if there's any leftover railway lines, or they've been all sold off and divided up, might be something. I don't think they all connect anymore. I know a lot have been. So it's just a safety aspect to try and figure that out. It's almost good to put them closer to the ditch so they're not right beside the speeding traffic, but so I'd offer that.
Okay, so then what do you wish?
I'm okay to proceed with the other 5.
Okay, so we will have staff investigate items 1 to 5. Okay? All right, then we'll move on to number 5, and that's anything else that you feel will have an impact on the preparation of the budget. I think a lot of these things we talked about already, and some things we have no control over. Is there anything there? If not, we'll move on to number 6. What services would you consider cutting? And I think Bob kind of alluded to earlier that maybe we wait and see what the budget actually comes in at before we do anything drastic here. Is that agreeable with everyone? Okay, number 7, what services would you consider reducing? And that's probably the same as 6. We wait and see what comes in. Okay, number 8, what services would you consider increasing, and how would you see it funded? This is also where updating the development charges bylaw. Does everyone wish to see that happen? You want to comment on that? No. Oh, Andrew?
What's the cost on that? Was it a big price tag last time? I can't remember.
I think the initial study was in around 50,000. Doing an update would probably be close to that, to be honest, because you still have to go through the same process. Part of the reason I'm suggesting that we do it is because, again, tying back into the official plan and the master plan, I think we have a better understanding now of the projects that would be directly associated with growth than council and staff had at the time the initial development charges were done. I don't want to miss out on opportunities to collect development charges related to growth related items because we haven't updated the DCs. We can wait, but I think the pressures that we're feeling around growth and the direction that we're here being told to take from the province is we need to be prepared as much as possible, and updating the development charges is part of that. So.
Okay. Anybody? Jeremy?
Yeah, the one I have here is just about increasing our partnerships with some of our community groups. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that the last 5-6 years with having different positions within the municipality. Like Sydney McCourt has been working in that position. She's facilitated meetings with different community groups to let all of us know about different grant opportunities and stuff like that. So that's something that, you know, we're paying for that position, but it's coming back to us, you know, not by, it's kind of self-funding in a way, because these projects are being completed through other government sources of government funding. So I think continuing with that, and if we can find ways to continue to support those community groups like the Shakespeare Optimist and the Lions Clubs and all of these little projects that we have on the go, I mean, we maybe don't have to change what we're doing, but I think we're doing a pretty decent job of that right now. So we need to really continue doing that in an effect that does keep our taxes down.
Okay, so everyone's in agreement then to, sorry, I go back to development charges, Bob. Everybody's in agreement to update it?
That's a
Okay,
legal process we have to go through to update it. We have to,
yeah, it's not as simple.
can't just bump it up.
No. Nope. Okay, is there anything else in that one that anyone wants to comment on? Nope, okay, then number 9, what services would you consider adding and how do you see it being funded? I guess we'll go to Jerry's. I think this is brought up, I've seen it brought up before about the yard waste. This is the most gas that he gets. He's wondering about considering a 1 or 2 day yard waste pickup or drop off at public work yard, costs added to waste management budget for all. We used to have somebody, Wes, didn't we, that would take the leaves and the tree branches at one time? Is that still around or not?
We started with that being with a gentleman north of town here that said he would take that type of stuff, and I think since has realized that it's kind of a pain. It's more of a safety thing for him as well, with cars coming in there and people wanting to drop stuff off. So I believe that is no longer. One of the big things that you run into with yard waste is you need to have it manned, and also there's rules around dumping yard waste and that type of thing. You would probably need to get approval from the Ministry of Environment in order to have some of this stuff as well. But it's not something that there was a report done given to council probably last term, I think, with the costs to what it would be to do that type of thing. So it's possible.
Do we take yard waste at the dump? There's a bin there for leaves and twigs and that kind of stuff? Okay. Nope.
It is becoming more and more of an issue in any of these small towns that people don't have anywhere to put it. And then it ends up in your trash is where people put it, which isn't really where it belongs. If there was a bin set somewhere, the south end and at the north end, then people could, if you one in Shakespeare, one in Milverton, some sort of a large, roll-off bin, it gets filled up. It gets taken away. Yeah, there's no way you're going to control what goes in there other than saying it's yard waste. Same thing happens in your garbage can and your recycling bin.
I was just gonna say, as long as garbage doesn't end up in it, right?
It's going to. Garbage ends up in your recycling bin too, right? And there's no way we can control that. I got cited because I put wrapping paper in my recycling because I thought it could go there, and then I ended up with a little note, right? Like, it's going to happen no matter what you do, whether you put it in there by accident or not. I think it's a worthwhile idea because we don't have the facilities close by that people can do it. It ends up, I don't know how many times I've seen bags of yard waste on the side of the road over the last couple of years. Not just garbage, but yard waste as well. So,
Bob?
I completely understand where Jerry's coming from. At the north end, there's really no options other than driving down to Southeast Hope landfill. If Ellis or Milverton landfills were open, it would be well used by the people in and around Milverton, right? But it just doesn't make any sense to drive all the way down to Tavistock, right? So, but having said that, as Wes alluded to, you have to have someone man it to monitor it, and you need a space, and that space has to be a certain size. It gets into a fairly complex issue and costly. So it's really, I guess, somewhat needed for those that live here and wish to get rid of their waste, but it's expensive. So I wouldn't really look to be doing it, because then is it, in this area for these people and not in Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's too far to drive to Milverton then. And so where's the happy medium? But having said that, if the wish was to have a quick report on what it would cost to have something set up, or if there's other partners out there that would take it, I don't know. Maybe that's an option as well, but.
All right, what do you guys want to do? Jeremy?
Can Wes bring that report back for a third time? I'm sure we saw it twice now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think we can probably dig it out again.
Add inflation
And add some numbers to it.
yeah.
Wes, I might be wrong about this, but was the report about doing curbside pickup of yard waste as opposed to a drop-off zone? Or was maybe both were considered at the same time?
Both were considered. I think there was 2 or 3 options as to how it could be, the costing and how it would be funded and that type of thing.
I know in Wellington County, they do a single yard waste pickup in the spring and a single yard waste pickup in the fall, and only in the urban areas. And it's expensive, but it was something that was demanded by the residents, and they ended up going that route. It's a different provider, so it looks different than that. But yeah, it's maybe something we can talk to Blue Water about in terms of whether or not there's other options that have presented themselves over the years. I don't know that. I don't think so, but it's, yeah,
So
if that was the direction of council.
Who paid then? Everybody or just those centers?
It was basic. It's a county, the waste program in Wellington County is a county program, so it was paid for across the county.
Okay. All right, so if you could bring that report back to a budget meeting, that would be good. Or you want a council meeting?
Budget's fine.
Budget, okay. All right. And then we'll move to number 10. What other comments would you like to provide leading into future budget considerations? Bob?
So earlier we talked about starting the budget process sooner, and I think that's great for getting tenders out earlier and hopefully getting better prices than other municipalities that are waiting, and then there's a backlog. So I think that's, what we agreed upon, and I think that's great. If the budget can, be wrapped up in, 1 or 1.5 meetings, and that allows staff to accomplish things sooner, I think we'll be saving some money. So I think we'll recognize that when it happens. I think that's probably the best case scenario. I don't think it's going to be costlier if we do it sooner, but I guess we'll live and learn.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. It's kind of, I don't want to make a speech or anything, but I'm going to do a little one, and I don't have it on my computer this time, so I might actually get through it somewhat. So I'm looking at a whole bunch of different data, and I'm still not convinced that we're in the same boat as the rest of Ontario, especially those prescribed communities that the Premier talked about that must grow. They said they have the infrastructure in place. I've read the news articles, I've read the news releases, and I know we need to grow a little bit for sure. A little bit of growth always needs to happen. If you look at the tax rates and that, like on the sheet we get at budget time, And you know, we're doing really well, right? It's a great place. It gives people more opportunity to spend money how they want to spend, whether it's buy things or it develop their business or put it into their family or recreation. It's choice of where their money goes. We're at the top. We're always at the top. I like to keep it that way. There's always been the mantra that more services, more people in the services is less cost. Well, that's just, I don't have any data that proves that. All I see is Stratford's like more than double. It's like 4 times the municipal rate than we are, right? It's just, there's nothing that tells me that more people, especially residential, is beneficial. Industrial and commercial is another thing. I think like one of the other councilors put on their sheet here, commercial industrial tax-based jobs in the township. We talked about that during a strategic plan where you don't want to have bedroom communities. You want to have people invested in the communities, if people can work in the community. So that's a really good job. I know in Shakespeare, there's actually a lot on the west side it's sitting in limbo, but could be serviced with the existing services, and it'd be a great place for that. If the person who owns that happens to magically be watching, that would be great to put some mom and pop stuff in there in the southern end. I think we should focus on things like that rather than the residential. I just don't find that, I don't see that the amount of residential is going to do us any good in the near term or the long term, right? The jobless rate just came out in the 4-county labor market this week, and it's showing non-participation and it's really not looking like we need all these, as many people as say a bigger center needs, right? Like it'll be good to be able to have the opportunity for factories and companies to have these people, but a lot of them are not going to be skilled. So it's going to be low level jobs, right? So obviously I kind of look at this a lot, and I'm still trying to rationalize the Watson report. I read it a few times, and it just looks like, as far as growth goes, and I'm not going to harp on it or say I know any better, but it looks like we're in really good condition. We've done a really good job, other than Milverton, which it looks like we're working on. It looks like we're doing well, like for employment areas and for urban housing needs. Like we're right on where you couldn't be any better. What we have existing and what's already in the system. I just, like I had said in some of my other comments, and I'm talking a lot, I apologize, but I just don't think the economics are there. I know there's the economy of scale, all that good stuff, but there's traffic, which we have some and not control of, which we constantly battle with, and safety, crime, all these other great things that come along with all this growth. Just like to maybe suggest, and I'll be looking at it this way, obviously, just to kind of take a deep breath and try and look at the real benefits of growth and how much growth is appropriate in a rural community. So that's my comment there. I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm just saying, you know, really, really make sure, because this stuff can't be undone, right? You know, it's important. I've grown up here, everybody's grown up here, and I like it to stay the same. Maybe even 50 years ago would be nice too, but no, that's not realistic, but that's where I'm coming from. That's the way I look at things, at least. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else with anything they want to add? Bob?
I think, while every municipality struggles with budgeting, we have to go back to who we are and recognize that throughout many budget processes, Perthes has maintained a fairly significant low rate for its residents. We're always near the bottom. We're not like North Perth or West Perth. We battle it out with Perth South, who has the lowest taxes in and around the area. And that is a comparison across Waterloo, Wellington, Huron County. So I don't think we can always stick to the bottom. I think at some point you are going to have to spend some money to bring in those industrial service lots or that commercial area. It's not always the developer that's going to do that. Maybe you have to look to partnerships to get these done. I'd love to see some jobs in and around these areas of Milverton and Shakespeare. I don't know how you do it. But I think, you know, the status quo isn't going to cut it without adding, what'd you say, Andrew, maybe 90 infill lots in Shakespeare and maybe, I don't know, 150 houses or, you know, townhouses, semis in Milverton. Our taxes would be a lot more. So that's what has enabled us to stay where we are with a fairly constantly low tax rate compared to our neighbors. So let's embrace who we are and see if we can promote ourselves to have whatever you want to call growth, moderate growth. But, Amanda can fill in the numbers, but I'm expecting, is it 1.5 million houses in 10 years? We are going to have to absorb some of that, because the reality is there are places in around Toronto that can't grow anymore. They don't have any more land. And that push is going to Guelph and Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo, and it's just going to keep continuing, and we're going to get some of that. So I think we have to look at being responsible and taking some of that on, and that will help, keep our taxes low. But I do think we also have to do a little bit more than what we have done, which isn't very much, in trying to attract some new businesses and help that industrial and commercial tax base. But what I'm getting at is we've done a pretty good job over the years, but we got to get that message out that, low taxes, great place to live, lots of things to offer. Other places spend more money on different things, and maybe they don't have the same happy-go-lucky people that we have around, right?
Okay, anyone else? If not, we do have a motion. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Paula?
Amanda?
Amanda?
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, I was just gonna add a comment to sort of what Bob was saying. I think we at least were the second lowest tax rate in all of Perth County. So Perth South is the lowest. I don't know where we're at now. So I think some of Bob's points make a lot of sense. Like, we're not even, again, Paula, you can maybe correct me. I don't know where we stand now, but like, we're not even, or we haven't historically even been middle of the pack in terms of the tax rate. It's a great talking point, certainly, but we look at other areas of the county, like North Perth, it's growing significantly. And I know that they're adding services, because people that are moving to, these areas sort of expect a different service level. So that's also something to sort of consider and think about as well. And I know, looking at Councillor Calpine, some of his points on the washrooms and stuff like that for tourism in Shakespeare, all good points, and something to think about. So just wanted to add that. I don't know if Paula, if you have an update on where we're at comparatively across the county compared to our counterparts, budget wise.
Through you, Mayor, I guess I believe Perth South just passed their budget not too long ago, and I haven't looked at where their rates played out. I would hazard a guess that we are still the second lowest, but I can confirm that.
Okay. Anything else? How you doing? You ready?
Okay, that the Council of the Township of Perth East received the report entitled 2024 Council Budget Visioning CAO 2023-08 dated July 11th, 2023, prepared by the Chief Administrative Officer for information, and that Council directs staff to have a 2024 budget target increase of CPI, and that Council directs staff to amend the budget development and control policy to include November-December timelines. And further, that Council directs staff to incorporate the following topics into the preliminary 2024 budget preparation. This is from page 4 of the report here. So line 33, Sebastopol sidewalk paving, hard service on Railway Street and Village, in the Village of Shakespeare, Byron Street, Tannehill Drive, Milton Street, Burns Street. Permanent public washroom downtown Shakespeare, and enhanced stop signs at the intersection of Byron Street and Andrew Street southbound and William Shakespeare Street, Byron eastbound, Village of Shakespeare. And that the projects be funded through existing reserves and department budgets in addition to provincial federal funding opportunities. That Council directs staff to, switch this page. review the development charges bylaw, and further that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report regarding yard waste. I think that has everything.
Did you say incorporate those 5 things or investigate?
Incorporate those into the 2024 budget preparation. So then at the 2024 budget, then the budget committee would decide whether those would be included or not included.
Was that everyone's wish? I was thinking that we'd have staff investigate, and then whether they be part of the budget, not that, I don't know, what was everyone else thinking?
We can change the word incorporate to investigate. Usually goes to the budget committee meeting. So it'd be the same if they're investigating it. I would think staff would be bringing forward the options, pricing, and then council would decide, or sorry, budget committee would decide whether it gets included in the budget.
Is that what everyone was thinking? Amanda's nodding yes. Andrew's nodding yes. Hugh and Jeremy and Bob, heads aren't moving.
Yeah, sounds fine to me. I mean, we still have the ultimate decision
Yeah.
after the work is done. It's fine with me.
Bob?
Well, let's just pull out the washroom in Shakespeare as an example. Let's say it came back and it's, I don't know, $250,000 or $400,000 for a self-clean washroom. I think we wouldn't be so inclined just to include that in the budget, but if you want to just throw it out there and then decide later, I'm okay with that. But the incorporate is, I guess, a little worrisome for me, just because it seems like it's already to be part of the process. And
can change it to investigate.
most times, I think what we've asked for gets included throughout the various years, and then it's dealt with, right? In this case, it seems like we're just wanting some more information, so investigate, for me, would feel a little more comfortable.
Andrew?
Either way, it looks like it's about the same. I'm just wondering, just as long as it doesn't get lost along the way, the county may want to have some say on this in their budget. It is an economic development opportunity. Some funding may come along, who knows, maybe we'll have a federal election soon. So I would say, let's not lose track of it, whatever that looks like. And along the way, the funding may get a little more clear. So if that makes sense, incorporate or what was it, include or investigate?
Investigate.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get lost, I'd like to.
Okay, so we'll change the word to investigate. Okay? Any more questions? All those in favor?
I don't have a mover or a seconder.
Oh, right, we don't have a mover or seconder. Okay, we're really relaxed, so we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Bob. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, then we'll move to 6.2, which is a consumer price index calculation. Paula, you want to comment on this?
Thank you, Mayor Agates. So the report before the Budget Committee tonight is asking to align the CPI calculations with the county's calculations, because currently we're a month off, where Perth East does August to July average CPI, and the county does July to June average CPI. So with moving the budget up, it'll allow us to get started that month earlier with calculations, as well as it'll keep our increases consistent in Perth County, so you won't have, hopefully, staff being poached here or there, or ill feelings that somebody else is getting a higher percentage or a 0.2% higher wage increase somewhere else in our neighboring municipalities.
Okay, questions, Jeremy?
I was just going to move the recommendation.
Okay, so moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Perth East receives a report entitled Consumer Price Index Calculation, FIN 2023-20, dated July 11, 2023, prepared by the Treasurer for information, and that the Consumer Price Index CPI calculation for annual budgeting purposes be updated to the average CPI from July to June annually to be consistent with Perth County and the other Perth County lower tiers, and further that Perth East Budget and Control Policy FL-1.06 be updated accordingly. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the next item is the finance discussion items. Paula?
Through you, Mayor Agates. Enclosed is the Consumer Price Index chart, and it shows from August to July, and it's currently an average of 5.7, which would be updated now that we've updated the change to match the county. It would be running at a 5.4 right now. So that was the first enclosure. The second enclosure is the 1% levy increase and what that equates to, and that is $99,871.74. And at the current 5.71 CPI, it was just over 570,000 increase needed. And then the next enclosure is the reserve continuity schedule. So it just shows the projected ending balances based on the 2023 budget for our reserves. And the next attachment is our unfunded capital continuity report, and it's showing that at the end of 2023, we would have unfunded capital projected at 711,000. We'd be paying down approximately 100,000 in 2023. And then the final two attachments, it's a chart for the 2023 levy distribution, just showing where the tax levy is going to fund in comparison to the next chart, the 2022 levy distribution. So you can see that the areas have remained fairly stable. Transportation 2023 was 45%, 2022 was 44%. Another change is recreation was 6% in 2023, where it was 9% in 2022. OPP dropped from 16% in 2022 to 13% in 2023. And general government went up from 15% in 2022 to 20% in 2023. So those were the big changes in the levy distribution.
Any questions of the report? Jeremy?
Just the levy distribution piece, I do frequently send people to the website to check this out. You can input your data about your home value and where you live. It's quite a handy little tool, and it tells you exactly how much of your tax dollars is going towards each of these things. Just a reminder that it's there, that you can send constituents there, and it's quite a handy little tool.
Okay, anyone else? We do have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the finance discussion items charts as prepared by the Treasurer dated July 11, 2023 for information. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Bob. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we don't have any correspondence. Do we have any new business? Nope. Okay, then we have the confirmatory bylaw, and that's bylaw number 29-2023, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Township of Perth East at its special meeting held on July 11, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the night is that we adjourn at 8:13. Moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.